Hello friends, welcome to the next tutorial of the Excel tutorial series, and in this tutorial we will be seeing how to create the pivot tables and pivot charts. And like, this is the data set that we are using in this tutorial. Like, this is the data set from an FMCG company for the regional sales of that company, and these are the different variables. Like, we have the order date, region, city, category, the product, the quantity, and the total price. So these are the variables, and with the help of this data set, which is quite large, we just want to summarize our data into a pivot table. So this is the pivot table that we will be building, that we will be creating in this tutorial. And one the most important thing is that the pivot tables and pivot charts are very important tools and techniques for summarizing a large amount of data. So this is the pivot table that we will be creating in this tutorial, and this is the pivot chart that we will be learning how to create this pivot table and this pivot chart in this tutorial. So let's get started. So this is the regional sales data set, and these are the different variables like order date, region, city, category, and product, quantity, and the total price. So now we need to create the pivot table. So first of all, we will be adding the filter to the columns. To do so, we can click on the home ribbon and then select the sort and filter and select the filter over here. This filter is quite useful in analyzing and summarizing the the entries by some variable, like we can summarize these entries, these data from for east region, for west region, or we can select the all. So this is the advantage of using filter in your data set when your data set is quite large. So like, you can summarize your data by city. Like city, you can select all, or you can select one or two or three or four or all of these cities. So this is the advantage of using the filter in your data set. Now we want to create the pivot table for the data set. So in order to create the pivot table, we will be using the pivot table from the insert tab. Like, MS Excel also provide its recommendation to your pivot tables. Like, this is the recommended pivot tables. Let us also see what are the recommended pivot tables for our data set. Like, Excel has provided these recommendations to us. We can use any of the pivot tables that we want to use, and these are the suggestions. Like this is the pivot table, like this is the pivot table, sum of the total price by product. And you can also use this recommendations. You can also use any recommended pivot table. So this one is the pivot table. So but in this tutorial we will be creating the pivot table by our own. So we need to cancel it, and we will be creating the pivot table by ourselves. So this is the data set, and we have selected a table or a range, and we want to create the pivot table, in this case in the new worksheet. So we have already checked it out, and we will be using the new worksheet, and then we click OK. So this is the new worksheet that we will be using for the pivot table. So you can also rename this worksheet by double clicking there, like pivot table. Now you need to assign, like, these are the variables, or these are the columns of our data set. We have the order date, region, city, category, product, quantity, and total price. So these are the variables, and you can drag your variables to these positions, to these areas below. Like, we have the filters, we have the columns, we have the values, and we have the rows. So to make that pivot table, what we need to do is that we need to filter the region. We can add the region to the filter filter first of all, and we can add the columns like cities, like the city to the column value. Like these are the four cities and these are the columns, like these are the four cities and these are the column labels. We have also added the filter by the region, and as we know that we want the total price to be our value, so we will be adding the total price to the values area, and you can see that these are changing as soon as we are adding the variables over these areas. So now we can add these category and the product to the rows category. So this is the pivot table that we wanted to build, and we have done so by using the pivot table and by dragging these variables to the different areas, and the output is the pivot table. So these pivot tables are quite important. Like you can see the different uh, grand total of these different cities. You can see that there are the different cities over here, and we can see that the grand total of the different products, and there are the different categories over here, and the different all of the products are categorized under their category, and all of the four cities are there, and their grand total is there over this axis as well, and this axis is as well. So this is the advantage of pivot table. You can also change the filter. That is, we have defined the region as the filter, and you can change the filter. You can select the east region, and this will change itself, and you can select the west region, or you can select the both of them and click OK. So this is the advantage of using the pivot table, which are quite important for summarizing the large amount of data. Now in the next step, what we will try to build is the pivot chart for the complete data set. So to build the pivot chart, we need to go to the pivot chart option over here, click the pivot chart, and then we have input the table range, which is we have provided it, and we also need the output on the new worksheet, and then we will be clicking OK to get the new worksheet. So this is the pivot chart, and we can rename this pivot chart by just double clicking over here. Now you can make the pivot chart, and you can drag these variables over to these different areas. Like we want the filter here in this case to be the category and the product, yes, and we want to use the total price as the values. So this is the total price, this is the sales over here, there is a total price here, and we want to use the axis and the legends as we want to use the regions as the axis. Like we have the east region and we have the west region, or we can also take it to the legion section, and we can add the cities to the axis. So this is the pivot chart that we wanted to build. Like we have summarized all of the four cities based on the areas, and their grand total is there, and we have also used the filter for the category and for the product. So this is the pivot chart, and it is quite powerful. It consists of a number of graphs. You can manipulate it, you can change your filters, you can view the different graphs, and these are the cities that you want. You can select any of the city that you want. The graph will change itself automatically. So this is the use of pivot chart, and it is quite important chart, and you can manipulate it by your own. You can add the different chart elements like we have discussed already. You can change the theme of the chart. So it is basically a chart, but It's a kind of a spatial chart, that is the pivot chart, and it is quite helpful in summarizing the data and looking the data, the large set of data at a single point of time. So this is the tutorial for the pivot table that we build here and the pivot chart. So I hope this video is useful, and thanks.